some breaking news out of Pittsburgh, maybe the news we've all been waiting for. For that, we bring in NFL Network's lead insider, Ian Rappaport. Ian, what's going on today with Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers?
Well, one of the NFL's longest-running dramas, and you covered plenty of the drama right there, could soon be over. Here's my understanding of where the situation stands with free agent quarterback Aaron Rodgers. He is expected to fly to Pittsburgh in the next 24 hours and can continue conversations with Steelers brass, with Steelers players, and my understanding is it is likely that Aaron Rodgers plays football next year and plays for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, he has had conversations with teammates, he's had conversations with receivers, he's had conversations with the fellow quarterbacks on his team, all leading to optimism that he should play. And I am told finality to his situation is coming soon. Could be this weekend, could be early next week, all possible, but that is the plan. Now, this is not the end of the road, guys. There is no contract in place. They have not had an agreement in terms on what Rodgers is going to make. He's currently scheduled to make $15 million under the UFA tender. We'll see if he's willing to play for that. So that should come in the next several days, but it is likely that Aaron Rodgers, at long last, will join the Steelers at a point very soon.
Likely not yet finalized. We'll take it at this point, given the way this story has been playing out or not playing out throughout the offseason. Steelers got 16 games worth of Aaron Rodgers last season, and he finished 23rd in the league in total QBR. Ball came out quickly, but it didn't go far. He was 27th in the league in yards per attempt last season. Rodgers turns 43 years old in December, hasn't won a playoff game since the divisional round of the NFC playoffs back in January of 2021. So that is where we begin NFL Live today. I'm Dan Graziano, joined by Jason McCourty, as well as Andrew Hawkins and Ian Rappaport, who you already heard from. J-Mac, let's dive right in here. Yeah. What are your expectations for this Steelers team if, in fact, Rodgers is back?
It'll be much like what we saw a season ago, where they're going to be playoff contenders. They're going to be in the conversation, and Aaron Rodgers is going to lead them in some capacity to get there. Now, you're looking at it and you're saying, all right, we get Rodgers back. Is this team going to be able to get over the hump? Are they going to be able to win that playoff game, get to the divisionals, potentially be contenders in the AFC? I don't see it going that far, but I feel like the Pittsburgh Steelers have backed themselves into this corner where, as of today, Aaron Rodgers gives them the best chance to win football games over Will Howard, over Drew Aller. So bringing him back makes the most sense for this team right now. Not only does he help them win games, Graz, but he also is an example in that quarterback room of what Will Howard and Drew Aller should look like, what it looks like communicating with Mike McCarthy to be able to find success on the football field.
Absolutely. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is the bridge to whatever the next era of Pittsburgh Steelers football looks like, for that exact reason you just talked about, J-Mac. And so now that we have him in the building, and that's the foregone conclusion, if you look at what the Steelers have done this offseason, they have already been planning for that to be the case. So I'm sure they're happy to put a button on it, but they drafted with that in mind. They approached free agency with that in mind. And for Aaron Rodgers, who we typically debate and say, okay, is he going to go to offseason? Is he going to be at voluntary workouts? It's important to get him in the building this year more than ever, because they brought in Michael Pittman Jr., they drafted Jeremy Bernard, right? And you mix those with DK Metcalf, and looking at the weapons that they have offensively, on top of a new coaching staff, on top of a new play caller, like, it's very important for them to get that chemistry down now so that they can hit the ground running in the fall, because the expectation is that they'll take a step forward with the pieces that they've added this offseason.
Yeah, it certainly is the hope in having Mike McCarthy, who really seems always to have a top-tier offense. Obviously, you want Rodgers to come in and hit the ground running. A couple quick points here. First of all, it does seem like that familiarity has already started to happen with Rodgers and some of his new receivers. That is a good thing. The other thing is, he has played in this system before. It's not going to be exactly like it was when Mike McCarthy was with the Green Bay Packers and Rodgers was there and they were winning and all of that. But certainly the language is enough to where he can come in, a couple OTAs, a little mandatory minicamp, hit the ground running for training camp, and your guys are right. This should be a team that is very good and maybe takes a step forward from where they were last year. And having Aaron Rodgers in the fold, finally, at long last, like they hoped would happen, should only help that.
And they will be trying to defend an AFC North title from last year. One of the teams that's going to be trying to catch them is the Cincinnati Bengals. And they had a familiar face in the building today as Joe Burrow, their quarterback, showed up for voluntary workouts. Burrow coming off a year in which he played just 8 games because of a turf toe injury, and Cincinnati missed the playoffs for the 3rd consecutive season. Burrow has a couple new teammates, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Cincinnati traded the 10th overall pick in last month's draft to the Giants for defensive tackle Dexter Lawrence. Also boosted their pass rush with former Seahawks defensive end Boye Mafe and added a pair of veteran safeties to a defense that gave up the 3rd most passing touchdowns last year. Ian, what more can you tell us about this offseason and the way it's unfolded for the Bengals?
Yeah, first of all, great sign to have QB1 in the building. Sounds to me like he was also in the building last week, but just to see the photos of him enjoying himself, a lot of positivity toward the Cincinnati Bengals from Joe Burrow. Don't just take my word for it. He also was quoted recently in Vanity Fair saying he was excited to see the initiative of the Cincinnati Bengals front office. And look, it is a big year, huge year for so many people inside the Cincinnati Bengals building, and they really have gone all in. And it's not just the trade for Dexter Lawrence, which clearly is something that Joe Burrow has supported and appreciated. You mentioned some of the defensive starters, at least 3, Boye Mafe, one of them. I mean, they have spent a lot of money and helped this defense. You know, we spent last year so much of the offseason talking about Joe Burrow's weapons and whether they're going to get new deals and all of that. This offseason was about the defense, making a complete team. It is very clear QB1 is fully on board with this. And you mentioned the health. He's been playing flag football, took the Pro Bowl pretty seriously. This is a very good version of Joe Burrow.
Hawk, so given all of that, how much confidence do you have in the Bengals after all these offseason moves?
Sneaky contender, man. I think when you look at what Joe Burrow does for this team, right, it's everyone understands it. Their offense has always been the thing that has made the Cincinnati Bengals go. But in recent years, their defense is all we've talked about. Well, now Joe Burrow gets to play behind probably the best offensive line that he has in his career. And then when you look at what they did on defense, where there's been mixed reviews, like, did they do enough? Yes, they addressed the front 4, specifically that defensive line. But I think it's like an accelerator to what you're going to get on levels 2 and 3. DJ Turner II played at a Pro Bowl level last year. I think he was a snub. Dax Hill came on strong late last year. They now signed Brian Cook at safety. And the idea is that because of what they've done with the defensive line, he talked about Dexter Lawrence, and they even drafted Cassius Howell, who likely kicks to the second level, that you've done enough to get this defense twice as good as they've been, maybe even more, and so much so that their offense with T. Higgins, with Jamar Chase Brown, you name it, they're going to be able to click and get the full capabilities with the defense that is more than adequate.
You said it, Hawk. This is the best defense Joe Burrow is going to have since 2021 when he was playing in the Super Bowl. Al Golden, the defensive coordinator, will now be in his 2nd year, and they went out and got players to fit his system. That, to me, is a big deal. The trade for Dexter Lawrence is huge because the segment ago, we're talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it feels like insanity because they keep doing the same thing over and over again. Well, for the Bengals, they changed it up. They made a huge trade, trading away the number 10 pick to get a guy like Dexter Lawrence. They went out there and signed a pair of defensive players that have Super Bowl victories in their past, and Boye Mafe with the Seattle Seahawks and Byron Cook, too, with the Kansas City Chiefs. So now you're bringing a veteran leadership to this team, and it all starts and ends with Joe Burrow. He's going to have to lead this team, and you need a quarterback that can do both. He can show up to the Met Gala and stun with an amazing suit, and then he can show up for all-season workouts on Monday and be ready to go. That is Joe Burrow, and I have high hopes for this Bengals team this season.
Yeah, I thought my suit game was sweet. Then I see Joe Burrow at the Met Gala. It's like, all right, I think we all have a little bit of work to do. As far as the Cincinnati Bengals defense, I want to call attention to this a little bit because when the Bengals season ended last year, obviously did not end like anybody wanted. The defense was pretty rough. And so there's so much conversation about, all right, is Zach Taylor going to fire Al Golden? He decided, you know what? Not only that, we're going to keep everyone essentially in place because if you look at the numbers, especially the last month or so, 6 weeks of the season, this defense actually got better. Players started to pick it up, started to make more tackles, started to stop teams a little more, kind of getting to that point where it was basically an average defense. And if you have an average defense, or maybe a little better considering what they brought in, and you have Joe Burrow, this could be an excellent, excellent team this season.
Only team in their division that did not change head coaches this offseason. So Bengals running it back and hoping it'll be better. It's theirs tomorrow. Houston quarterback C.J. Stroud was out there today handing the ball off to newly signed running back David Montgomery. Came over in a trade with the Lions in which the Texans sent guard Juice Scruggs and 2 draft picks to Detroit. Montgomery ranks 8th in the league in rushing touchdowns over the last 3 years. As for that Houston rookie class, 26th overall pick Keelan Rutledge, a guard from Georgia Tech, is one of 5 new offensive linemen the Texans acquired this offseason. So, J-Mac, the Texans always seem to be giving C.J. Stroud a new offensive line. Yeah. What they have not given him is a contract extension, even though he's extension eligible for the first time this offseason. So how much pressure do you think is on C.J. Stroud this season?
There's a ton of pressure on C.J. Stroud. 1, the contract. 2, to be able to just rebound from what he did in the playoffs this past season. I think if you're C.J. Stroud, you like the fact that you don't have a contract offer in front of you, because I don't want to negotiate coming off of the 2 games that he played in the playoffs. I want an opportunity, to your point, 5 new offensive linemen. This is a chance with a brand new running back in David Montgomery to go in there and set the tone for this offense. Nick Caley, the coordinator, it'll be his second season. They got rid of some coaches and brought in some guys that knows Caley's system. So now for C.J. Stroud, you're setting yourself up for success going into a season healthy with an opportunity to prove that you're one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Now you're negotiating from that standpoint. So yes, it's a ton of pressure, but it's also a runway to be able to get the bag and get paid.
To your point, J-Mac, C.J. Stroud has done exactly what you're talking about. He's played well under pressure. So I would say in this scenario, we can expect the better version of C.J. Stroud. Look, he came in as a rookie and he broke records. He had us in awe to see a young player play at the level that he played. Down season the year after that, but then had a bump a year ago. The reality is they've been in the playoffs every year he's there. Between him and Will Allen, they have turned the franchise around. And from a franchise perspective, it is only going to get more expensive because he is a above average quarterback, and we've seen a lot worse quarterbacks get that extension. So to your point, maybe that's a price they're willing to pay when C.J. Stroud comes out and has a career year. But if I'm the franchise, I work to get this deal done now because he's going to be our quarterback for the foreseeable future.
Texans aren't really shy about those big money extensions. Remember, they made Will Anderson Jr. the highest paid non-quarterback in the league with his extension a few weeks back. As for the team that just unseated the Texans atop the AFC South, the Jaguars had big plans for Travis Hunter when they traded up with Cleveland to take him 2nd overall in the 2025 draft. Last year, through 7 weeks, Hunter was on the field for 2/3 of the offensive snaps and a little over 1/3 of the defensive snaps. But then on October 30th, he tore his right LCL and his season ended early. The injury led many to assume that the two-way dream would end for Hunter. However, Jaguars GM James Gladstone was on the Rich Eisen show and said, not so fast.
He is set to play both sides of the ball. The piece that I think we can expect to see is actually an uptick in corner usage, right? Last year, it was a higher volume, higher percentage of wide receiver usage than it was corner. That's not to say anything impacts his availability and usage on offense. It just means that cornerback usage will increase. He wants to play both ways, and he wants to do exactly what he set out to do when, he first started putting that into action all those years ago. And that's his dream, and we'll look to support that in the best way that we can and be able to do what we feel like is in the best interest of winning football games. And that's putting him in the position to do what he does best. And usually that's with the ball in his hand, and it's defending some of the best receivers.
This was a huge topic on our shows all last summer and into the season. Now that you've seen what we saw last year, heard what we've heard from James Gladstone, what are your thoughts on Travis Hunter still trying to play two ways?
I would love to see him at cornerback full time. I just think he can impact the game so much at that cornerback spot, and it can be dominant. You can go out there and shut down another team's number one receiver, opposed to being able to have a smaller impact on both sides of the ball. He can still go out there and play 100% of the snaps on the defensive side of the ball and sprinkle them in certain situations on offense where he can go out there and get the ball in his hands. Look, playing DB in the league, going against some of the best week in and week out, like it takes the specialization of focusing on that, the film, the practice reps, all of that goes into play. I don't want to minimize this, though. Travis Hunter is a special, gifted athlete. If there's anyone that can do what he's trying to do, it is him. It's just that ability to be jack of all trades, master of none. You're always going to be fighting that battle.
I'm with J-Mac, man. I don't think there is a reason why we can't evolve into both sides of the ball. J-Mac said it perfectly. It's really hard to play in the National Football League on one side of the ball. And yes, he is a generational talent. And that is the reason why we are advocating for him to master the cornerback position right now, because he could probably play corner pretty good and play receiver pretty good. But you're talking about a person who has the ability to, again, be a generational corner. Lockdown, the tools that he has puts him in that class. And that is not to say he won't also play wide receiver. But as you know, getting started in your NFL career, things are moving fast. This is the time when you have to put the most time into a position to truly learn, get acclimated, and get up to full speed. He has not done that yet. He will be further along, making an impact on both sides of the ball this year than he was last year. And then next year will be the same case. But right now, if I'm the Jacksonville Jaguars, I'm making him exclusively a cornerback, making him one of the best, if not the best cornerback in the NFL, and then revisiting how we slowly move him back into the receiver position, because he has now the experience of operating on both sides of the ball, and one of those sides at an extremely high level.
I like the sounds of that. He said one of the best in the NFL. And they need a number one corner. Like Newsome is gone. He went to the Giants. So getting a guy like Travis Hunter to play primarily on that side of the ball will give them a number one, which he can be a shutdown. They have guys on the offensive side of the ball, especially once they traded for Jacoby Myers and Brian Thomas. They have guys, Parker Washington, that can go out there and compete. You're going to need guys on the defensive side of the ball to go out there and set the tone.
That's the thing to keep in mind. The numbers game has changed.
Yes.
At wide receiver, they didn't have Jacoby Myers last year when the season started. They trade for him. They sign him. Maybe they have more of a need for Travis Hunter at the cornerback spot. Still to come on NFL Live. Let's go through some of the top stories around the NFL, starting with the news of the day. Quarterback Aaron Rodgers is expected to visit the Pittsburgh Steelers this weekend and is likely to play for them this season, sources told NFL Network's Ian Rappaport. There is no agreement between the Steelers and Rodgers at this time, but the expectation continues to be that there will be. Former New England Patriots receiver Stefon Diggs was found not guilty on Tuesday of assaulting his private chef in a pay dispute. The acquittal clears a path for Diggs' return to the field, though he still could face discipline from the NFL. Diggs was released by the Patriots in March. And negotiations between the NFL and the NFL Referees Association on a new collective bargaining agreement have progressed far enough that the union has scheduled a ratification vote for tonight, sources telling ESPN. Once formally approved, the agreement would avoid the need for replacement officials this season, which is good news for everyone, especially with the NFL schedule release show coming soon. Our crew is going to take you through each team's schedule and break down the biggest matchups in the annual 2-hour special, in which we will also reveal the Monday Night Football schedule. In the lead up to the schedule release, we're looking back on some of the best games of 2025, and we start with the Week 1 matchup between the Ravens and Bills that went right down. Broncos, another tough finish in the Josh Allen era. After that, the team fired head coach Sean McDermott and promoted offensive coordinator Joe Brady to succeed him. They also brought in Pete Carmichael and Jim Leonard as coordinators, and the biggest move may have been the DJ Moore trade, in which they sent a second-round pick to Chicago for Moore and a fifth rounder. So, J-Mac, a lot of changes in Buffalo this offseason, which we're not really used to.
Yeah.
Does this mean to you that this is the year they may get over the hump?
It's going to come down to, in the big moments, somebody stepping up and making a play. I don't think the issue has been the roster with the Buffalo Bills. They've had enough to be able to reach the Super Bowl, but they continue to fall short for so many different reasons. The 13-second game, a missed kick, a Stefon Diggs drop, a Dalton Kincaid. There's been so many of those moments where guys aren't stepping up, making the plays. History is against him. There's only been 5 rookie head coaches to be able to reach the Super Bowl, Jim Caldwell being the last one in 2009. So for Joe Brady, this is a huge hill to climb up in his first year taking over as a head coach. Look, the familiarity on the offense is going to help. The relationship with Brady and Josh Allen is going to help. I think DJ Moore is a big, big asset for them. I don't know that they've done enough to get over that hump, but we shall see.
Yeah, I love what they did in the offseason, J-Mac, and I think you're hitting it on the head. I think a new voice is much needed in Buffalo with a new head coach. Favorite offseason move is Jim Leonard as a defensive coordinator. I'm a huge fan of Jim Leonard. He's a football savant, the same way we talk about the Kyle Shanahan tree offensively. That's how Jim Leonard sees defenses. Bradley Chubb, much needed. And then also, You talked about DJ Moore. Skylar Bell is one of those receivers that they got out of UConn in the draft mid-round, but I see him contributing early. And I love the combination of him, Khalil Shakir, and DJ Moore. You kind of have these three do-it-all receivers, and you pair that with a quarterback like Josh Allen, a level of quarterback that neither one of Bell or DJ Moore has ever played with. You have the opportunity to say, okay, well, now you have playmakers on the outside, also something that they've lacked since Stefon Diggs has gone away from that offense.
Absolutely. It'd be interesting to see that defense under Leonard. It was so much the same for so many years under Sean McDermott.
True.
Big changes in Buffalo. After that Week 1 game, Buffalo got rolling. Baltimore really never did. They finished 8-9, and John Harbaugh, their longtime head coach, lost his job. Ravens hired former Chargers defensive coordinator Jesse Minter to replace him. They also lost center Tyler Linderbaum in free agency to the Raiders. They briefly had Max Crosby in a trade with Vegas, but then they backed out of that. Signed defensive ends Trey Hendrickson and Calais Campbell as well. The ageless Campbell spoke yesterday about why he decided to come back to Baltimore after a few years away.
Eric DeCosta called pretty much every year, but this year it was more like, I got to have you. This is going to make a big difference. And I felt that. And I believe that, this team has all the tools to win. Where can I go where I can make plays and win games? And Baltimore made the most sense when it came down to that.
Hawk, Calais Campbell sure has seen a lot of football. When he says the Ravens have all the tools to win this year, do you agree with him?
I agree. And I think Calais Campbell's a big piece of that. We came out in the same draft class. I've been out of football for almost 10 years, and he's still playing. But him as a leader, besides the fact he's a productive defensive lineman, versatile, and a leader, the fact he's a leader in the locker room is important because there's two things that need to happen for the Ravens to be a contender. Number one, they got to establish an identity that is not going to be easy after moving on from John Harbaugh with Jesse Minter coming in there, which means that identity better be rooted in defense. And number two, Lamar Jackson has to stay healthy. Why are the Ravens a contender? Well, the same reason they're always a contender, because Lamar Jackson is such a unique talent, and anytime he's healthy and they are clicking, there's a force multiplier that happens with this team that makes them one of the best teams in the National Football League. So if they can do those two things, Calais Campbell's exactly right. They have the guy at the quarterback position, number 8. That means that they're a contender.
I love what you're saying, especially with Calais Campbell, because you don't know what's going to happen with Nnamdi Madubuike, with everything he's going through with his injury. And then you mentioned Lamar Jackson. The fact that he's been in the building throughout the course of the offseason is huge. They moved on from Harbaugh, Minter's there. That shows that he is loving the changes and that he is all the way bought into what is going on now. Because where this team goes is going to happen between the relationship with Lamar Jackson and Declan Doyle, the new offensive coordinator, who's going to bring a different system over where he's going to be using multiple tight ends. He's going to be trying to get the run game going and then leaning on the play action pass where Lamar Jackson is special in that department. Last year, when he came back from injury, seemed a little bit slower. And then he got to that last game against Pittsburgh, and we saw the marvelous Lamar that we were used to. Can he continue that trajectory and get back to being the Lamar we know him as this season?
He is in attendance for those voluntary workouts, as you mentioned. Always a good thing.
He told me if he goes to the Cowboys, he's playing nickel. So that's like head-to-head, like all games. So I was like, that's interesting. So when he got drafted, I was like, we play all this year. And he got all hype. And I was like, it's all fun and games, but, I got to still let him know he's the little brother in the situation.
J-Mac, you know a little something about NFL brothers. Who's got the edge in that matchup?
Man, I get fired up just hearing about this. You expect me to give the edge to somebody on the offensive side of the ball? There's no way. I just think about these guys growing up. You're playing Pop Warner football. You're trash talking each other in the backyard. You're wrestling, arguing over who knows what. Now you get an opportunity in the National Football League to be head-to-head. They both need to be mic'd up, and don't let mom and dad listen to the trash talk after the game and hear some of the words that they're probably going to use against each other.
To New York now, where new Jets offensive coordinator Frank Reich talked about Geno Smith's fit in his offense.
I think he fits perfect. I've liked Geno from day one. When he was coming out of West Virginia, I had a high grade on Geno. I've not met Geno before here. And I'm kind of glad because I'm even more impressed with him now meeting him in person. I feel his resilience, his toughness. If you're the right kind of leader, then you come out of it better. And I think that's the version of Geno Smith we're getting. We're getting the best version of who he is, and I think his best football's ahead of him.
Hawk, Geno coming off a tough year. What are your expectations for the Jets offense this season?
You heard him. His best years are ahead of him. Look, the thing that makes Geno Smith special is his resilience. You saw how his career started with the New York Jets. To be able to turn that around, he did play his best football whenever in places where we would have never expected it. So I am of the camp, like Frank Reich, that he's going to come back to the Jets. He has that chip on his shoulder, and he is going to play his best football to make right all the naysayers that doubted him early in his career.
To Tampa Bay now, where wide receiver Emeka Egbuka spoke about the Bucs trying to fill the void left by the departure of Mike Evans.
Obviously, I think there's a passing of a torch and it needs to be received by someone. I think that our management, our GM, our owners and everything like that, they've done a great job of bringing guys in who are up to the task. Obviously, we're feeling the effects of Mike being gone. He's so loved within the building, within the Tampa community. And it's nothing but love for him. There's no hard feelings or anything, and we all believe he's going to do amazing things in San Francisco. But there's a little bit of a passing of the torch and a handoff, and I think everybody in our room is up to the task.
Egbuka knows well Mike Evans essentially is the Buccaneers' record book when it comes to receiving. He has 254 more catches than any other player in Buccaneers history. He caught 108 touchdowns over his 12-year career with Tampa. He's the only Buccaneer who's ever even caught 50. And the only active player with more touchdown catches than Evans is the Rams' Devontae Adams, who has 117. So, Hawk, they've been getting ready for this for years. Well, like the Chris Godwin, Egbuka, what do you think of this wide receiver room in Tampa without Evans?
Look, you cannot replace Mike Evans. His longevity, his consistency, one of the best receivers we've seen in the NFL over the last couple of decades. That being said, it does remind me of the DK Metcalf situation in Seattle when he leaves and then JSN takes the step that we saw him take this year. When you looked at Egbuka early last season before the hamstring injury, he absolutely had number one receiver-like tendencies written all over him, and now he'll get a chance to prove that. You talked about Chris Godwin, who has that veteran presence. A young Jalen McMillan is still in the room. And then they have a draft pick in Ted Hurst out of Georgia State, who I think is a steal. I think that if he would have hit the transfer portal a year ago instead of opting to stay at Georgia State, he might have been a first-round pick because he has all the tools to also be a number one. Zach Robinson will come in there, and he definitely still has the weapons and the horses in the stable to make sure this offense is operating at a high level at the receiver position.
I love the name you mentioned in Ted Hurst. He was at Valdosta State before he went to Georgia State, and I know his wide receiver coach, Pat Brown, who coached him, talked to him today. He said this guy can go, has the speed of a small receiver, but a basketball background where he's going to go up and attack the football while it's in the air. A humble kid, a hard worker. This is somebody that's a little bit different of the guys that they have in their room. He has the size, but the speed to stretch the field. So it's going to be fun to watch Baker Mayfield with this group of receivers and seeing how he can spread the ball out and get the ball down the field to some of these guys. You mentioned you can't replace Mike Evans, but going out getting a big receiver that can get down the field, similar to what Mike Evans was able to do over his career, let's see what a guy like Ted Hurst can grow into. Obviously not going to be Mike Evans right now, but can he fill some of those gaps, potentially in the red zone, potentially on those 1st and 10 where you want to take a shot down the field? Can he show up for this team in those moments?
This Bucs front office, pretty good track record finding wide receivers in the draft, so hopefully they found another couple of gems there in Egbuka and maybe even Ted Hurst. New on NFL Live from our Adam Schefter, Reuben Bain Jr., the Buccaneers' first-round pick, signed his 4-year fully guaranteed rookie deal. It's worth about $23.75 million, and he's still rocking the Warren Sapp jersey, just to let us all know he knows his Bucs history and is eager to become a part of it. Some big-name veteran wide receivers still out there on the market, J-Mac. DeAndre Hopkins, Deebo Samuel, Keenan Allen are among the group still looking for work, and that list doesn't even include Brandon Ayuk, who's still technically under contract in San Francisco, but I don't think anybody expects him to be there much longer. Stefon Diggs also on the list of free agent wide receivers, and he posted this on Instagram yesterday. Caption said, "This is not an opinion-based sport." So here are the numbers. I've played 52% of the snaps and finished with 85 catches for 1,045 yards coming off ACL. Where are we going? That brings us to some quick reads. Hawk, where do you think Diggs should go in free agency? Who should sign him?
I don't think he should go nowhere because I think the New England Patriots should do everything in their power to keep him in the building for the exact reasons that he said in that tweet, which is, I performed. Not only did he perform, when you watched him play a year ago, we used to break down his film every week, J-Mac, Dan Orlovsky and I, and we would be in awe that this is a 30-plus-year-old receiver who came off ACL because he did not play that way. If I'm them, no matter what they do with A.J. Brown, I'm trying to keep Stefon Diggs in the building.
All right, we'll see how that goes. You're right. It could be that they have their eye on another receiver via trade that we've talked about a little bit this offseason. J-Mac, another wide receiver still on the market is Juan Jennings, formerly of the 49ers. Who do you think should sign him?
I got two spots for Mr. Jennings. The L.A. Chargers, if he wants to go into a similar role in which he had in San Francisco, a reliable target, throw it to him on third down, he'll make the play. But I think for Jennings, he may want to grow into a bigger role. What about the Tennessee Titans? A young quarterback like Cam Ward who lacks weapons on the outside, he goes there and instantly can become one of the guys that he relies on.
A couple of potentially still exciting additions out there at the wide receiver position as the offseason has programmed. They got veterans Jacoby Brissett and Gardner Minshew under contract. They used the 65th pick in last month's draft on former Hurricanes quarterback Carson Beck, who was the third quarterback off the board after Fernando Mendoza and Ty Simpson, who both went in the first round. Arizona also has Keaton Slovis on their roster. New on NFL Live, Carson Beck spoke moments ago about where he thinks he fits into that quarterback room in Arizona.
Again, whether you're the fourth string guy, the starter, it's important that you approach each and every day the exact same, and you exude energy and you bring it. You be yourself each and every day, and that's kind of what I've always tried to stand for. In my college career, so I hope to continue to bring that and be myself and compete, and we'll see where that takes me.
What do you think, J-Mac? What do you think the plan should be for the Cardinals at quarterback?
The one thing you love about Carson Beck is he's played in a lot of big games, and you know that that's probably going to translate at some point for him. But right now for the Arizona Cardinals, I would be trying to get Jacoby Brissett back in the building. He's a guy that finished the season last year for them when they ended up putting down Kyler Murray, got injured. They didn't allow him back in the lineup. Now, they didn't win games behind Jacoby Brissett, but he had some success throwing the football and getting the offense going. Trey McBride had an outstanding year. Wilson on the outside had one of the best years of his career, young career as of that. So to me, bringing Jacoby Brissett back in the building just makes sense. He's a leader in that locker room, and I think guys will listen to him. And it also allows a guy like Carson Beck to learn from a veteran, having him in place, especially with a running back in Jeremiah Love that you brought in. You want to build around him and have veterans there to show him the ropes.
I'm with J-Mac. I'm team Jacoby Brissett. Make him your quarterback to start. And that doesn't say that Carson won't get reps or start at some point this season, but to go into a season with a rookie third rounder, a first-time head coach, there's going to be a lot of things going on in the offseason and leading up to the season that you're not going to feel good about. Jacoby Brissett helps right the ship. It helps stabilize, especially with a lot of young talent on this team. You're going to need that veteran leadership. And when he gets in the building, again, it's going to be hard for a rookie to beat out a veteran like Jacoby Brissett in an offseason or a training camp that at his level, he could look great in those things in his sleep, right? And that's what you'll want as a quarterback, a little stabilization.
And it's interesting because we keep mentioning Jacoby getting him back in the building. He's looking to get a contract that's not the $30 million that we're seeing some of the guys, but he wants to be compensated just as a starter in the league. If he's going to be the guy that ushers in or is the bridge to the next quarterback, I think the Cardinals would be smart, Monty Ossenfort, their general manager, to get that done sooner rather than later. So he's around these guys throughout the course of the offseason. Jacoby's been in a lot of different situations. He was in Cleveland when Deshaun Watson was suspended. He was Tua Tagovailoa's backup. So he has a wealth of knowledge and experiences in the NFL.
Lots to still get figured out for the Cardinals' first-year head coach Mike LaFleur. To the division rival 49ers now. They had to replace Kyle Shanahan's defensive coordinator because Robert Saleh took the Titans' head coaching job. To replace him, San Francisco hired Raheem Morris. They brought in some pass catchers, too, signing wide receivers Mike Evans and Christian Kirk, and then they used a second-round pick on Ole Miss wideout Deshaun Stribling. A lot of changes in that room. J-Mac, George Kittle coming off of an injury. We talked about Brandon Ayuk probably not going to be there. Juwan Jennings, a free agent. So how much confidence do you have in the 49ers wide receiver room?
I really like the signings they brought. I know Hawk is fired up when you see that many wide receivers. Christian Kirk, get a guy like Mike Evans, who's as reliable of any wide receiver, to create advantages on the offensive side of the ball available, and he has Kyle Juszczyk available. The way he moves those guys around to create, when he has Kittle available and he has Kyle Juszczyk available, the way he moves those guys around to create advantages on the offensive side of the ball. They're both terrific blockers. They both can run with the ball in their hands. Without them, they're going to have to rely on these guys, including Ricky Pearsall, who's a young guy that can get down the field as well, to go make plays. And I think for Brock Purdy, having some reliable targets on the outside, especially a guy like Mike Evans, is going to help without having George Kittle out there.
The biggest question for the 49ers weapons is, can they stay healthy, right? Like, that's always it. We know the system is going to be top 10 because Kyle Shanahan is an offensive genius. We've seen that year in and year out. They bring in Mike Evans, they bring in Christian Kirk, they kind of revamp what this receiver room looks like, but it will still be the same question. Talent-wise, they were all there. These are older players, though, that we've seen have trouble with injury situations. And so if they can build this team for the long haul, if they can build this team to stay healthy, I love what they have from a weapons perspective mixed in with Kyle Shanahan. Even Stribling, who, yes, will be a rookie, but he does all the things that Kyle Shanahan loves in this offense. Mean streak blocker, great yards after catch, aggressive hands catcher, and speed for days. He'll jump right into that stable and fit into that system perfectly.
They did have a lot of injuries last year, yeah, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They got enough over there?
Yeah, you need these guys healthy. You get Bosa back, you get Fred Warner back. Now you're actually talking. Bringing back Dre Greenlaw, having him and Fred Warner next to each other is going to be energy through the roof. And then they also traded for Odigizua from the Dallas Cowboys. So if you get the whole band back together, you have a legit chance to compete in the NFC.
San Francisco still chasing the two teams that made the NFC Championship game in their same division. Thanks for watching NFL Live.